Okay, so welcome everyone to actually a new episode of our ECE Conversations. I am actually today with Wouter de Bruijne.
Yeah.
Very excited for this chat and thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Yes, I would almost say that you're a man that needs no introduction, but maybe to begin with, I want to ask you just, who are you, Wouter, actually, for those who don't know you?
Where to start, Leonardo?
Yeah, just keep it short though.
Yeah, I got it.
Nothing too long.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
First of all, I've been leading Parkby for the last 7.5 years.
7.5 years.
And prior to that, I was at Yes Delft, the tech incubator here close by in Delft.
Yeah.
And actually launched my first company when I was 18.
Wow.
Which bankrupted in the end, but at least gave a lot of lessons.
Yeah. How old are you now? Do you want to say? Or
is that no, I'm 40.
I'm 40.
Yeah,
Okay.
40 and proud.
So you started when you were a student?
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here at Rotterdam School of Management. Actually.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know this. I should have known actually. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah. Nice. And thanks for your time. So actually, we are here to talk about founders' frustrations and resilience.
Yeah.
And before I delve into the questions, I have some questions prepared for you. I don't know if you feel a little bit like an interrogation at the university. It brings back the memories. But I would like to ask you also on a personal note, how did you get into the topic of resilience?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a personal story to that. Like I said, I was running Parkby for 7.5 years, and although I mean these entrepreneurial rides, they're always bumpy. You're always looking for the right path to grow, and
it's a rollercoaster ride, right?
100%. We really established that. But at some point, I noted in myself that I actually was really struggling personally.
Yeah.
Really after its toll of me to keep on going and running the company.
Yeah.
Which really initiated the thought for me to understand how entrepreneurs deal with their own mental well-being.
Yeah.
Decided to take a really lean approach there.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur at
yourself,
I guess. And I just started interviewing other founders, entrepreneurs about how they deal with everything they have on their plate.
You talked to like 200 people, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, more than 200 now.
Yeah.
For the last 2.5 years. And that really grew into a lot of knowledge about resilience and learning how you deal with everything you're kind of encountering on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of practical support you get as a founder. Also here actually at ACA in a lot of places. But a lot of it is on topic. So if you want to learn how to fundraise or do sales or do your product development.
Investments.
Investment, definitely raise funding. There's a lot of support and knowledge there.
Yeah.
But I, together with Sander Peltenburg, I'm doing this. We just realized it seems like there's a lack of knowledge about the mental part of running and growing your company.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that? The mental part? Is it more to do, would you say that there's a lot of support for the growth of the company as such, but a little bit less for the personal growth of the entrepreneurs?
Because every different step and challenge asks a lot from you. And also asks a lot from you. It's just simply how you're dealing with it. How you keep your mind positive, how you focus on continuing growth, learning with setbacks, and navigating tough decisions is a big subject. So there's so much coming at you, and I sincerely believe that if you build that, create that, it actually gets, I wouldn't necessarily say easier, but it's better to deal with all the challenges you're facing.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because actually that brings me back to let's say the topic of this afternoon. To begin with, we say founder frustrations and relievers. And you know, frustrations is not a coincidence for us, because I also have it here, right? I think you have this already, but I can give you one, like formally. Our book, Founders Frustrations, which we actually based on a research that we from EC asking founders, as you say, being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster ride. So rent with us for free. It's cheaper than therapy. Let us know what's frustrating you. And that started like a little joke, but before we do, we actually had over 350 submissions of people that wanted to share their frustrations. And it was a little bit of a surprise for us. So many people were sharing that they were actually frustrated. So the question to you is also, is entrepreneurship frustrating to you? Did you experience that, or can you relate to it?
Sure. I mean, I guess any entrepreneur can relate to the fact that there's definitely frustrations, challenges, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe actually resilience is learning how to deal with frustrations.
Okay.
Or sometimes maybe even prevent that things really become a frustration because you act on it. You kind of control things a little bit also in your own mind, so to say. But for me personally, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you always want to go harder, faster. You have to keep your whole team together. But also the market needs to be ready. Like if you slow down or if you just it's not scaling the way you planned it to scale, which it never does, by the way. That definitely leads to challenges which become frustrations. 100%.
Yeah, that's something that I hear from a lot of actually high growth entrepreneurs or scale up entrepreneurs. I mean, Park B has also been one of our top 250s in the past. Maybe this year again, I don't know. But I see them growing and doing great things.
Yes, true.
But in a way, what you hear is that when you're scaling, everything is becoming bigger at a really fast time, right? And on the one hand is really you get maybe more money in, more revenues, but it also the complexities are increasing, and to deal with all of that brings a lot of pressure on actually the entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurial team. So that might actually get even more frustrating. Was that your experience a bit, or?
The bigger it gets, the less things you can control as well. Which is also something that's really difficult for a lot of people with an entrepreneurial mindset, at least, or entrepreneurs. Because you have to give away, let go of certain areas that you can't control. You need to focus much more, set your priorities much clearer. And on the other hand, that's something we also experienced. Of course, your team's growing, which is a great thing, but also your costs are growing. We have ran Park B also through Corona, for example. So that brings a lot of pressure, of course, at the time. And then you just realize, it's a lot right now, and a lot to deal with, and also a lot of people to deal with, and to manage all these processes in the right way, and to continue growing every step, every stage again, and continue that hopefully double-digit growth, which you often want to do as a scale-up. That asks a lot.
And it brings more frustrations, and actually, if you want to kind of operationalize that, right? Frustration is actually that you feel. It's also a very high intensity emotion, but it's also a very unpleasant emotion. So the question to you is also based also on the conversations you had with other founders, what you learned with your personal story, but also talking to so many entrepreneurs. How do you actually turn that negative, or maybe we shouldn't call it negative, but like more the highly intensive and unpleasant emotion into something more constructive? So how do you actually make that switch from a more frustrating feeling to actually being able to bounce back?
Good question.
Leonardo. If you knew it right away, maybe it wouldn't be.
Well, one thing we did clearly see, so we interviewed more than 200 people, all founders in different stages of growth of their company. You could also see some of them have really gone through something, and that made them decide, okay, I need to do things differently, because if I continue going like this, it's not gonna end up well for me, let me put it that way. Or I'm not the person or leader that I want to be. There's also many that realize that, let's say, after 2-3 years, 2 or 3 to 5 years, they just realize, I think when you start something, you're not necessarily, you think you're doing that for like 3, 4, 5 years, build something that's growing stable, and then you see what's next. At some point you realize it's not 3, 4, 5 years, it's another 3, 4, 5 years probably. Which also means you kind of need to change things and take control over growing resilience, so to say. And one thing we very clearly saw is that a lot of founders in these situations, they made a lot of conscious decisions. So prior to these situations, it was very unconscious. So you're just doing, you're learning, we're just doing, acting, going, growing, and doing the best you can. But they switched something to be more conscious about their behavior. And we really clearly saw that a lot of entrepreneurs who were very conscious about their own well-being as well. They were very much stronger in their position, and stronger in their mental being. So that's definitely one thing. Kind of be aware of that. And be conscious about how you whether to make decisions, reflect, that you're conscious of your own learning, conscious of having a routine that really works for you. That actually gives you a certain level of control.
Yeah.
Also over your own mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, consciousness is also an important prerequisite for growing, right? At least when it's about for personal growth and personal development, being aware of what you do, actually the impact that your actions, your words have on others is probably the starting point, right?
Fair.
But I can see that also has a strong effect on resilience as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of research also, for instance, on how entrepreneurs perform better, for instance, when you have a better sleeping schedule, or that you're actually making sure that you can have some time to spend with your family. That's also, by the way, one of the frustrations we heard a lot. People don't have time to be with their friends, to be with their partners, to be with their kids. Because somehow you think you're an entrepreneur, now you have the 3, 5, 10 years that you just kind of have to suck it up, if you can pass me the expression, and just focus on the company. But in a way, working harder or longer doesn't make it necessarily smarter.
No, especially not for the long run.
Right.
And something but that's also what you're pointing at now, we also saw a lot, is the sense of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I specifically say the sense because you do that yourself, to be honest. You kind of have the feeling to sacrifice a lot because other people are making more money, or because you sacrifice a lot because you're not spending time with your family.
Yeah, you give up a lot. Of course.
You give up a lot. You give up a lot for the company. The question to yourself should then be like, what do you want, and how do you kind of want to lead your company going forward?
Yeah.
And something I can really relate to personally as well. I think for me, one of the triggers was also the fact that I didn't have the energy anymore to be the parent that I wanted to be. Having kids really changed your view as well.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes it's easier to sacrifice your relationship at some point. But with your kids, that's just way more visible. And you want to have time and energy there as well. Yeah. So that I can certainly relate to that frustration. Yeah. But also to the fact that you can turn that around. You can definitely be a good entrepreneur and a good parent. Yeah. As long as you decide to be.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, maybe it's also good to have that statement, because a big part of the image that we send out there also of what is a typical entrepreneur, if we can even talk about it nowadays, but it's really, that hardworking, and maybe it's some type of model that we're kind of implicitly bringing out there. I don't know if you see that, but it's also good to show that there's a broad diversity of options in which you can be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Also,
and success can be defined in different ways.
One of the big topics we also saw is your ever changing role, so to say.
Yeah.
As a founder in all the different stages, you usually have to take a lot of different roles. Yeah. But also there we see, if you look at whether it's literature or it's the known entrepreneurs, they're usually still the kind of the CEO leading the company, being very closely related to their company only. Yeah. Whilst for a lot of other founders, there's also other options to kind of pick in a different role, also lead the company, so to say. You don't always have to be the only front man.
Yeah. Or woman. And so if we talk about resilience, we come also a little bit from an academic perspective, so we love definition. Yeah. What is resilience to you, actually, as an entrepreneur, or as a person?
For me, it's really, it's not just about a mindset. I think it starts with understanding that you can grow or learn to become more resilient. And then in the end, it's about dealing with everything you encounter. So that's setbacks, because they inevitably become part of your journey. Navigating tough decisions, dealing with setbacks I just mentioned. Dealing with all the personal challenges you're going to be having. And it takes resilience to be able to do that.
Yeah, one part that I actually really liked, because I think we will just share it also in the comments for people. But you actually, together with Santor, you prepared a test, right? That people can actually fill in. And out of curiosity, I did it myself. It was actually very nice. And you get this kind of profile, right? To how resilient are you actually as an entrepreneur? And what you also operationalize it, right? You have different pillars. And you say, you can invest here or maybe build on that one. And what I also really liked is that one of them also had to do with kind of accepting that life happens, you know? So it's not only just proactively just doing something, but also understanding that sometimes also things happen to you and that not everything is in your hands. Because that's also how a lot of entrepreneurs are, right? You just want to be very actionable and you're very solution oriented. So you just want to do something about it, but sometimes you cannot, if you like, or it's very limited. Or
from the research we did, the more than 200 people we interviewed, there's 8 different areas. I think if this is areas.
You know them by heart, right? Of course.
Number 7 is life happens, because we saw with many founders that they either thought they had everything under control, they were doing conscious things, they had a routine, and then something happened. It could be an illness in the family. It actually often also was becoming apparent, which means you need to reassess things again, and again take conscious action to make sure that things maintain to work, so to say. And there's just a risk that you kind of lose yourself if that happens. And it actually is something that woke a lot of founders up for the choices they have to make.
Thanks. I go on with questions, but I know we also have some people live in the meantime. So if anybody feels like posing a question to Wouter, just write it in the comments. We can also address that. But while we leave also people to think about what they'd like to ask you about this topic, of course. I'm actually curious. You have this 8 areas of interventions, right? Is there anything that's looking back to you as an entrepreneur, 18 years old when you just started, or maybe later on, partly or different phases, a tip that you would have liked to hear back then? That says, well, if somebody told me at that point, maybe
all of them. Well, to be very honest about that.
All of them.
No, I mean, I wasn't that aware of a lot of these things I later discovered. I just kind of survived through my entrepreneurial life. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs or founders doing that. So
surviving.
Instead of thriving, which we like to say. So I wasn't taking any conscious decisions. I wasn't aware. I didn't have a routine, so to say. I would just go to part B, be there quite early, because I always would say I love to be an hour and a half before the rest, and then I can get a lot of work done, and then I would work all day, and then the end of the day go back again. I wouldn't check in with myself, write some reflections, and know what I wanted to be learning and developing. There's a lot of these tips that we just learned from speaking to other founders. They took control over their mind then as well, and the control over their being. I just kind of lived and thought like that's just me, and I'm a creative guy, so I should always have to like that chaos. But bringing routine and especially time also for yourself, even when you're busy, to check in, or if it's just a little walk for lunch or whatever it is, to kind of do what you need to do to be in control and be a better leader and founder. And I never realized that, to be honest.
Maybe it comes back a little bit to that being conscious part that you were saying.
I was very unconscious.
Being aware of yourself.
And that's also when we started doing this and spoke to so many people, just realized we want to create more awareness for this. And give other founders in that sense the opportunity to be conscious and make decisions.
And what are your experiences so far? Are entrepreneurs receptive of this story? Do you get a lot of like, hey, you guys are doing a great job, or thanks for sharing that, or do you also get a lot of like, of course you want more. No, but I'm wondering if there's a topic, that's touches people, or you're like, I don't have time for this, I'm too busy building my company, thank you, Wouter.
Well, one thing we do see is that it depends on if there's a trigger already. A lot of founders, they already are walking around with the thinking like, I can't do this for much longer. So then they can really relate to the things that we're saying, like that you need to take a break as well, or whatever it is. For many founders, especially in an earlier stage, you're kind of still proving your existence as a company. It feels like that your role or your position as a founder then comes last. And that's often for so many entrepreneurs, they kind of put themselves pretty low on the list. So we kind of want to shake them up a little bit more, or make them aware of the fact, like, I sincerely believe like stronger and more resilient founders build stronger, more resilient companies. So do that then not only for yourself but also for for the company.
No, I think so too.
For the long, because you're in it for the long run.
Yeah.
But you need some awareness is needed.
Yeah, but that's also something if I can relate also maybe in our own team, but also looking also when speaking to a lot of other entrepreneurs. It's important to keep each other sharp on that, and also we need, you need leaders of an organization to actually be fit. Physically fit, but mentally fit actually. Fit, so especially if there's pressure, if you need to take important decisions, it's important that you take care of that. So that's a good one.
And it depends on the topic as well. We saw like founders that can really relate to the fact their sense of purpose is one of the topics, where we discovered that a lot of founders started their company with a big purpose in mind, a big goal.
Not surprised by that.
Or they adopted a big BHAG, hairy audacious goal. Along the way, there's a lot of these kind of things, but there started to be a disconnect. So sometimes because the daily work they were doing didn't relate that much to the bigger goal anymore, or because they pivoted 2-3 times to kind of find their way to grow. When we talk about these things, they can really relate to that. Another topic is navigating tough decisions. So many founders you spoke to had a decision they were carrying with them for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 months, sometimes up to a year or more. They knew they needed to act on it, but they were neglecting to act. So when we start to share stories of other founders, they can relate to that. So I see that relatability to a certain topic is key. Which is also why we launched a scan, so you can see yourself like, on which area can I improve? Because there's probably always an area you can.
Okay, great. Actually, having a look, I see that there is somebody that wanted to ask you something about if you see an effect specifically on the founding teams. Actually,
all right.
If actually having support from your team makes a difference for the resilience of the entrepreneur. Of course, if you see that, because actually maybe to relate a little bit to our founders frustration book, a lot of people also surprisingly said they felt a bit lonely as an entrepreneur. That had to do also with the private sphere, what we discussed. But now I'm curious also seeing this question, if there's anything that you can relate to that.
To the topic of loneliness, or
no? That's 2 questions. But it's more like to the founding team, because that's the question, right? So does that make a difference to have a supporting team? Co-founders.
By far, it creates it's different than being a solo founder, of course. If you have that team around you. Whilst we actually also saw that the team can become one of the reasons why you're struggling. So it is actually important, and we consider it also part of, in the end, founder resilience or entrepreneurial resilience. To make sure you actually continue investing in a team. And the most important thing there, and I also think that's key for the loneliness part, the sense of loneliness, is to speak up. So to share the real things that are happening, because a lot of teams, and also co-founder teams, they're focused a lot on the business, and there's a lot of struggles there already. You don't always feel like you can also share like, hey, I don't have the same drive as I used to have anymore, which is a really big thing to say amongst founders, unless you created that environment or that space already.
That's not that easy though, right? I think it also
takes a lot of
work to make that happen, but also a lot of courage, if you like, to speak up and open up.
And it's definitely one of the key things. And if you consider like the sense of loneliness, which we also got a lot from the founders we were interviewing. It is very important to have like a support ecosystem around you, because indeed, there's not always everybody can relate. It's a sense of loneliness, but it's usually based on like not feeling understood. Which can also mean that the people around you, don't understand you. You can solve that by having the right people around you, a mentor or other peers that do understand you and that can help you in the right direction. To deal with these things. And that this is really what I would say resilience is all about. Learning how to deal with that. noting that you might feel lonely in certain things, but also seeing how you can overcome that.
Yeah, so it's not only about the outputs, you would say. Resilience is also what you put in it.
Yeah,
right? The inputs.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And have you ever had actually quite some skeptical maybe entrepreneurs about what you're doing? And if so, what was a good trigger to actually turn them into getting a more open mode of working with you on this topic?
I do a lot of coaching as well for entrepreneurs, as I think you probably know. And I can definitely say they're not the easiest target group, which makes sense because you're, I wanted to say the word stubborn, but it's not the nicest way of saying it. But these are very driven.
You have a particular vision of the world.
It's not always good, or it's not easy to talk about these things. And it's easier not to talk about these things for the short term, because then they don't exist, so to say. So when we start to ask questions, often we got like pretty, which is very typical for entrepreneurs, I think, also founders amongst founders. If you ask, hey, how are you doing? You probably tell like the revenue you're making, or you might not even say that anymore.
And your client, you will.
Yeah, you say like you have like 100 FTE, just raise capital and all these things. You don't really answer how you are doing. You kind of answer with how the company is doing. It takes sometimes asking 5-6 questions to kind of dive deeper into like what is really on your mind, what are the personal challenges that you are facing. So it's not always easy to break that open with founders or entrepreneurs indeed. But and there's sometimes some skepticism. I do see like most people we spoke to in the end came back to us.
Okay.
And sometimes that took a year, and then they said like, "Oof, actually, I recognize this now."
Yeah.
Because you kind of need to have that awareness, I think, first. So that's to see that. So.
Okay. Well, no, that's great. And also, as you say, we said actually entrepreneurs are very solution driven and action oriented on average. So let's maybe talk a little bit of what can you actually do to become more resilient, because we also have a couple of nice things that are coming up.
Yeah.
True. So maybe we can also disclose that a little bit.
Do you mean the workshop?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean that's what the
serving is on a silver plate, right? That's
what we got from all these conversations and all the work we've been doing in the last years. There's a lot of practical tips. There's a lot of lessons learned, cases from other entrepreneurs. Yeah. That's one thing we really saw. Like entrepreneurs want to learn from other entrepreneurs.
Peer,
of course, indeed. Yeah. So we said like, let's bring that out there in the sense that that's also why we launched the Founder Resilience Workshop that we're going to be giving together with you guys as well at the Upstream Festival, the 21st
of May, right?
Right. To really to share all these practical tips as well, but also to have a bit more like closed door conversation with founders amongst founders.
That safe space.
Yeah, that safe space about what's really happening, what's really what challenges are. Yeah. And give a lot of practical tips and input to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think we will start with some energizers to actually get the frustrations out. Okay, I'm not going to say more about it, but I think that that's going to be fun. Yeah. And then indeed we will have the workshop. It's a safe space, right? So what we discuss there stays also within those 4 weeks.
Yeah, certainly.
And after that, there's probably also some drink or party that we can join. But that always makes it fun, right?
To get it all out. Yeah. I think to highlight that these sessions, we give them a lot. I mean, they're peer sessions, and they really have the purpose to be very interactive as well and very practical. So to really show and share a lot of tips and tricks. So,
Okay. So looking at the time, before we round this up, I have one final question for you, which is actually the final question I always ask at the end of every interview. Okay. Is there something that I didn't ask you that actually you would have liked to be asked around this topic, or something that we didn't mention that is still relevant?
Well, we covered a lot, I think, in a short time frame. And I hope that everybody kind of remembers that it takes like consciousness. I think we highlighted that very clearly. And actually, we didn't necessarily talk a lot about like mindset, one of the topics as well. But I just learned so much from other founders how you can really control that mindset, remain positive. And I think that's just a key thing to have, because then anything that gets thrown at you at your entrepreneurial journey, you'll be able to deal with in the end. But more about that at the workshop, I guess, as well.
I would say so. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Looking forward to share more
Me too.
later.
Thanks everyone that was also following us. And if you want more information, if you're curious to dive deeper into resilience and what the impact of it is actually on your personal growth as an entrepreneur or on your growth of your company, feel free to reach out. We will leave some comments with more contact details. Thank you very much.
Yeah.